Welcome to America's Horse on America's Trail with the Mustang Discovery Ride. I'm your host, Julianne Neal. With a goal of 5,000 miles, 5,000 Mustangs, the Mustang Discovery Ride team hopes to bring attention to adoption into appropriate homes for these living legends. Enjoy the ride. Welcome back to the podcast. In this episode, get ready to hear the story of one of Lisanne's tougher days on the trail.
And there was this day that the butterfly landed on me, and it didn't leave me for 15 or 20 minutes. I mean, it would kind of flutter off and it'd come back right back in and land on me. And I just sat there and I looked at Claudia and I was like, what is this butterfly trying to tell me? And we're talking about people joining the trip. Papa Mike had just joined the trip, and he really has studied a lot of the Lakota ways. And for the Lakota Native Americans, they're really into what different animals tell you. When you see a certain animal, that means certain things are going to come in or out of your life. And it was right after we kind of seen and talked with Papa Mike, and he had explained, anytime he saw an owl, the owl for them represented a death, and usually a death of a close member in your circle. And so he tries to avoid owls at all times. But for me, this butterfly had landed on me, and I was sitting there and I was like, oh my gosh, this butterfly is scaring me, because in a lot of ways, butterflies are a symbol of metamorphosizing, you're changing from one state to a next. And I just felt like this butterfly was trying to tell me something. And I was like, Claudia, I don't know what this butterfly is trying to tell me. Should we even leave today? And she was like, I don't know, but it's weird that you say that. But we saddled up and we rode off anyways. And it was an incredible day. Oh my gosh, I was so surprised by Illinois, just the beauty that it had to offer. And we're just along these rock-faced cliffs, and just the trees and foliage. And I was riding with David and Marcus that day through the woods, and Claudia was support driving for us that day. And so we are getting these awesome shots with these incredible rocks. I'm really excited to see the footage from all of that. It's funny, I get a ride on this trip, but I don't really get to see any of the film or footage that comes from it yet. So I think I'll be as excited and surprised as most people who watch the documentary. So it was just so beautiful. And then we landed at this place for lunch. But on my map, it looked like there was a trailhead right above this place where we ended up deciding to have lunch. And I thought, there'd be stairs or something that would come down into it, but there wasn't. And so there was this awkwardness, because Claudia was stuck up on top, and we were down below, and we were trying to figure out how to get Claudia down to us. And then there was also just this beautiful little waterfall. It was called Jackson Falls, and there's this beautiful waterfall, and there's just this nice little almost reflecting pool at the base there. And it was so hot that day. And so Marcus, he was a 19-year-old kid that was super athletic. He ends up climbing a tree to get up to Claudia, where Claudia's at. So he's getting the horses grain and feed and stuff, so that way we can settle in for lunch. And I decided to take a dip in the water and stand under the waterfall, and it was just so beautiful and just so cool. And unfortunately, while that was all happening, David slipped on a rock, and he hurt his back really, really badly, to the point where I didn't think he could ride out of there. So once we knew that injury was happening, I made the call. I was like, hey guys, let's set up camp here for the night. And so at that point, Marcus had gone and gotten a few things, but I didn't know what was happening up on top in the parking lot very much. And so apparently Claudia had found this girl who she called Blondie, and David got a great interview with Claudia calling her nothing but Blondie. Katrina had just shown up to camp at this trailhead, and Claudia was like, oh, don't camp alone, come camp with us. Claudia was she's just amazing at including people into this grand adventure and wanting to get everyone involved with the Mustangs, and she did. And so Katrina's backpack gets thrown down to us down below, and Katrina is now helping Marcus get stuff for camp, so that way we can stay down there that night. Well, while that's happening, not 15 minutes after we made the introduction And it's crazy. I haven't fully seen the film yet, but David happened to be rolling. And the camera captured Caillou getting bit, not like physically, but the sound of it. You hear Caillou get hit, he kind of whimpers, and then like he starts just screaming when that venom like hit his system. And yeah, that was super scary. We didn't know exactly what type of snake it was. Marcus was really good at identifying different things, but he was up above, he wasn't down below with us to see the snake. And so we were calling it a water moccasin, but it actually turned out to be a copperhead. But with that being said, I mean, Caillou's screaming bloody murder. I'm trying to get like a little bit of a tourniquet on his legs, trying to keep that venom from going up his leg, and he's just screaming bloody murder. And again, luckily, like I'm again back to like being grateful that it was David there. David kept a really cool head because it's just him and I down there. And Marcus essentially like finds a tree to scramble down, and he comes down, and we had been using this army duffel to move stuff up and down between like where we were setting up camp and like the trailhead above with the sport vehicle. And we ended up stuffing Caillou into this army duffel bag, and we only had ratchet straps for rope at the time. And so we threw a ratchet strap up over a tree, and we were able to kind of fully hoist him up to the top. And then Marcus and Katrina just took off looking for a vet with anti-venom. I mean, we also didn't have any cell phone service down there. I'm really grateful and thankful for my satellite phone that I had in that moment. And that was sponsored by Summit Animal Health. And so super happy that they recognized that, like that was a essential piece of equipment that we needed. And so Caillou just took off, and like with Marcus and Katrina, and it was so hard to keep communication, and David and I are stuck down in this hole. But we had seen one snake prior to Caillou getting bit, but again, like at that point in time, we didn't recognize what it was. I've learned a lot from this event. But Caillou got bit by another snake, and then David and I both saw separate other snakes other than those. So like we were like essentially stuck in this pit of vipers, and in order to get out of there, we had to go essentially like 3 miles back and around to get out of, like there was this beautiful like cliff face wall, and it's hard to see until I guess you see the footage. So that'll be a good thing for the film later. But and I caught just this last piece of Caillou like going up over the cliff. And David has me like trying to like climb out of this cliff. I had like climbed up this big rock and like this tree and like trying to get out, but like I just couldn't do it. Like the moss was so slick, and just that feeling of helplessness and hopelessness where you don't have a communication, you can't get to anyone or anything to get out to get help. It kind of leaves you in a little bit of a state of panic. And I just, yeah, I mean, you just have to trust that everything's going to work out, I guess, in a way, and keep your head cool. But again, that's you're not reacting to the situation, you're processing it, and then moving forward with what information you have. And so at that point I had noticed, like I was trying to bring up in my memory, and we had ridden by this thing that said heli spot, and it had an arrow pointing up in it. So I jump on Chileno, and I just take off back down the trail to go look at what that heli spot meant. And so I saw it in the daylight, and it's like this climbing path to get out of there. Like it's like these huge massive boulders, but they're kind of like step stairs. But on the picture, I mean, it shows like a guy like climbing them, like not hiking them, but climbing them. The horses, in order to do it, like they had to collect all 4 feet together and then launch up to the next ledge, and then collect all 4 feet together again, and then launch up to the next ledge. But I mean, he crawled out of there. I got up there. I was able to make contact with Marcus and see how Caillou was doing. At that point, we found out that like no vet in the surrounding area had any sort of anti-venom. And so he had to get hauled all the way to St. Louis, which was 2.5 hours away from where we were at, for emergency medical care like that. And so once I've kind of touched base with the team, I went back down that, and it was just so sketchy going down that. I mean, I've ridden a lot of horses in a lot of different situations, but that's something that'll stand out in my mind. Well, then I get back, David and I pack up everything, all of our camp supplies. We load Stash down with whatever we had come down with, because Marcus wasn't riding him anymore. And I just tied the rope around Stash's neck, because I threw Zindy in the saddle with me, and I had Aveline. And we headed off and it was dark. It was dark when we left. Well, I will say, yeah, Caillou's gonna get a new collar out of the snake. I kind of felt a little bit like I don't know that I'm really allowed to say this, I'm on, so I don't know if you'll have to edit that out later or what, but yeah, that was skinned out, and yeah, Caillou will have a new collar of pride from that. But yeah, so anyways, David and I are riding out and in the dark, and it was just David is in extreme crucial pain from slipping on that rock. Like, he can barely move and having a really tough time with it. And he's breathing through the pain, but it was more grunting and whining through everything. But he jumped on Finn, and it was good to know that Finn could take care of him. And we took off back down the trail. And then I asked my horses to go up that climbing deal to the helipad up top in the middle of the night in darkness with like just the little beams of our headlights. And all four Mustang, well, including Abilene, like, they did it. I mean, they did it in the dark, and they're launching from one step to the next, and then they get up to the top. And I'd taken Cheleno and Abilene first and had Finn follow. And so when Finn followed, I had gotten mine up to the top, and I went back to check to see if David was okay, and I had tied mine up. And just as I see David, unfortunately, Finn heard the other horses, and he fell into a hole, and he just went sideways. Like, they had made it all the way at the top, and Finn like falls into this hole, and David fell off of him at that point. And then Finn like scrambles out of this hole, and just happy that everyone was okay in that situation. And Stash, unfortunately, like, so I had loaded this big heavy pack, just top loaded it up on top of the saddle, because like there was no way to counterbalance the load. And it was so top heavy that at one point, like when he was like launching up, like it had tipped him over, and he was like all four legs up, but he found a way to like roll over and like got himself back up and out of there. And I mean, those horses are just absolutely incredible. I'm so happy that I had Mustangs that night. Yeah, because I mean, they're just the most sturdy animal around, and they just pulled through at a crucial time.
If you'd like to support the ride and help Lisanne and the team make it across the country, please visit MustangDiscovery.com. If you'd like to support the making of the documentary and the docu-series, please visit JAMediaConnections.com.
We were left in a bad situation. We finally get back to camp. Marcus had taken all of our supplies with us except for the bare minimum that we had thrown down to us, which was one tent. David was in critical condition, as much as he doesn't want to admit that. Like, he wasn't in great condition. And so we found some help from a place where we had stayed the night previous, and had them come pick up David just to make sure that he was all right. And Claudia and I hung out there in the campground. I mean, we only had one tent. We didn't really have much for like sleeping equipment or any food or anything. Marcus had taken all of that and left the humans and horses in a really bad situation, because he had taken all the food, all the water, everything from us. And so that wasn't a great scenario that we were left in. And but like, thank God, like, Caillou made it all the way there to the deal. And yeah, he's still here. He spent 3 days in the ER, and David and I went and saw him while he was in the ER. And yeah, I mean, it was hard to see him with his legs all shaved, and you can still see some of it in the photos right now. And he's been sloughing off the rest of the bite now, but I mean, he was all swollen, and he's a white dog, and you can usually see his pink skin underneath the white fur, and it was just all black and purple. He still has some bruising from it, and we're like 3 weeks out of it. But yeah, just really crazy, really grateful and thankful that he's here. But again, I mean, in a way, like, the show had to go on. And so, like, even though like my dog was down, like, we had to figure out where to go and what to do next. We did take 3 days, spent 2 of them in St. Louis just being with Caillou, and then he got released and he got to come home. But yeah, Caillou, gosh, Caillou is my psychiatric service dog, and he's trained to help me with my like severe depression and anxiety, and my PTSD. And like, to know that he was hurt and down was really hard. Yeah, I'm really, really grateful that he's still here with us. Um, yeah, but I'm also super grateful for like having a good team around me and being able to rely on my Mustangs too to get us out of that situation. Because I mean, we were just left in that pit of vipers, and David was already injured, and it was just really hard. Uh, just a hard day situation all around, and that's just a prime example of like here we are in like one of the most beautiful spots that I've encountered so far on this trail, and then it's just struck with so much tragedy around it too, and just the constant highs and lows of this trip. They can be so extreme, so fast, but yeah, just extra super grateful that Caillou's still here. But it really made me realize, this trip is a little can be a little dangerous. I call myself fearless all the time, but I think the reality is that there's a lot of fears out there that you just have to be brave enough to encounter anyways. But yeah, just crazy. I don't know exactly how to conclude that crazy day or story very well, but yeah, just really grateful and thankful that everyone's alive and well these days.
And I mean, I knew of the snake bite with Caillou. I had no idea you're in a pit of vipers. That whole, I mean, that I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. And so then, like you said, then the show must go on. So you and David go and spend that time. But then right after that, you've got people coming in to ride with you. How the hell do you do that? And what, I mean, do they see all of the behind the scenes, or do you put on a brave face and just keep riding down the road? How do you do it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And most days I don't even know how. I think a lot of it is like you're just in shock and like you're just rolling through the motions of everything. Um, yeah, it was kind of crazy how it all happened because those two gals came up from Georgia and I just felt so bad that they had come up. I was a bit of an emotional wreck. We had postponed like our leaving day because I was in the ER with Caillou. And then yeah, it was just absolutely crazy. And then unfortunately for them, they had a bit of an adventure themselves. Like while we were waiting for Caillou in the ER, like they had accidentally hit the truck with the trailer and blown out their back window, and so like they had to go get that replaced. And all of their batteries had died on their truck and trailer, and they had to go get all of those replaced. So they were on their own adventure, alongside of our adventure. And then we end up only riding one day together. And while we were riding, it was crazy. Chileno did something he's never done before. So usually, like when Chileno goes off the road and into the grass, he usually has to go pee because he doesn't want to pee on the asphalt. So I don't blame the guy. But he had like walked off the road, and he just like coupled up, and like what I thought was like him stretching out to pee was him like coupling up to and he just laid down. And it was just the weirdest thing. Like he just laid down right there next to the road, and he had never done anything like that. I mean, this is the horse that never stopped moving. He's been like my rock solid hero. So we all get off, and we had to walk to a safer spot on the road, probably a half a mile up the road. And then we stop, and as I'm trying to get the saddle off of him, he tries to lay down again. But it wasn't colicky behavior at all. So Marcus was support driving that day. I called him. We took his temperature. He did have a fever. I called the vet back that I first met in West Virginia when Chileno had shown signs of tick fever. And he said that like horses generally, once they have Lyme's disease, there will be flare-ups like from here on out every year. And so Chileno was having another flare-up of tick fever. So we decided to call it quits that day. And then but Chileno wasn't supposed to move for the next 3 to 5 days. And unfortunately, like for those girls, like, we were trying to figure out what the best solution was since they had just driven all the way from Georgia. But like here, like I can't ride one of my main horses. And like at that time, we didn't have a support truck and trailer. And that was the whole saga within itself and like a shit show. I should cuss less on this, but it's just been stressful these last few days. You can beep it all out.
Yes.
But yeah, so we didn't have the support truck and trailer, and so there was no way really for me to like trailer my horses anywhere. And that was really stressful. So like while so the gals that had come up from Georgia, they had a 2-horse trailer, and we had 6 animals with my 4 in there too. And so we were doing 3 trips back and forth to like get to a safe space for Cheleno to rest. And while we were doing that, I made the decision and I bought a red-eye flight in that moment to fly back to Wyoming to go buy a support truck. And yeah, it was crazy just how quickly it all happened. But I just knew that, you know, like I think in a way, sometimes unfortunately, but like everything happens for a reason on this trail. And you know, I think Cheleno knew that in a way, like I was really stressed about a lot of things going on, and like him going down, it wasn't the worst thing. It wasn't like he was like in critical care or anything, and he was going to be okay. It was just a little flare up of whatever. We got the doxycycline for him and back on him, and but it gave me the space and the days and the time to go get a support truck and trailer. And so that, I mean, that was like an epic saga within itself. But it also, like, you know, I was a little stressed out about the whole Caillou deal still. And so Caillou again is my service dog, and so he was able to fly with me, and it was so good to like have that one-on-one time with him flying home. So I was really happy to have that.
There's 50,000 horses standing and holding right now, and holding pens across America. And so we're trying to ride to inspire the adoption of 5,000 of these guys from holding. And we're trying to show through like a variety of different things, like the versatility of the Mustangs. I mean, we're here for the horses, and it's just so cool like how the love of horses can unite everyone on such a front.
I'm just excited with like where the ball is going and rolling, and I think that's what keeps me going and motivated on a lot of days when you know, like I don't want to get out of bed and I don't want to face whatever the day might have to throw at me, but these Mustangs, you know, they continue to like re-inspire me every day, and like they just keep me going. And you know, I have to do this for them. I mean, they've done so much for me, and I want to see more of those relationships ignite across America with everyone who adopts a wild horse.
Yeah, tomorrow's like 10 miles.
That's what these animals give you. They say, you know what? We're going to impart some tools with you. And that's what's going to save this community. I mean, I'm not doing this other stuff. Paxil's not going to save us. Zoloft isn't going to save us. It's going to be getting tools we can build on and begin with healthy relationships. Because when you have healthy relationships and support at home, you can get through anything. Get through anything.
Planting those little seeds every day, and I'm excited to see them grow in the future.
If you'd like to know more about the ride, please visit www.mustangdiscovery.com. If you'd like to support the upcoming documentary or docuseries, please visit jamediaconnections.com. We really do appreciate your support.